The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
This case is about Raul Valle, the defendant, who brought a knife and provoked a fight and stabbed 4 kids 9 times, killing 1.
They were intent on pummeling him, and no way to know whether or not that was going to stop until he was dead. This is what self-defense looks like. There's no manual for self-defense.
We'll soon be on a verdict watch in Connecticut for the murder trial of Raul Valle. We're previewing the day ahead in the Preppy party murder case. And a pediatrician in hot water this morning. Police are claiming that she staged the death of her 4-year-old daughter. Her story is what's trending in true crime. Plus, testimony set to resume in the widow's words murder trial. This morning, we're spotlighting the defendant's actions, including her very emotional 911 call. We've got a voice analysis expert here to break down the truthfulness of Karina Cooper's statements. And it has been a decade since Crystal Rogers went missing. We'll have the latest on her family's quest for justice. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful, relaxing holiday weekend. We sure did here, and now we're back and ready to go. We got a great show planned and a big day ahead on Court TV Live. So let's start it off as we always do. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. It has been 10 years. 4th of July weekend, 2015. Crystal Rogers vanishes, to never be seen or heard from again. Her 5 children left without their mom. Her mom and her dad, Sherry and Tommy Ballard, are left devastated and searching for answers. 16 months go by, and Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard, is murdered. His case is still unsolved. But for how long? How much longer will we be waiting to see Crystal Rogers and her father get justice? Our cameras are not permitted to film, but trial has been going on for Crystal Rogers' ex-boyfriend, Brooks Houck, and for his co-defendant, Joseph Lawson. Closing arguments are set to happen today. You might recall us telling you that Joseph Lawson's father, Stephen Lawson, had a separate trial already, and he's been convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and of tampering with evidence. Now, while we haven't done extensive coverage on this trial, I wanted to make a point, my friends, to start this week off by talking about this case, to say that Crystal Rogers' life mattered. Her family was robbed of their peace for a lifetime because of what was done to her. I don't know which way this trial will go, but my thoughts and my prayers go out to the victims. While the 4th of July holiday weekend will always be celebrated by the majority of Americans, it will always be a very painful weekend for Crystal Rogers' family. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket. In Iowa, we've got testimony resuming this morning in the murder trial for Karina Cooper. That kicks off at 10 a.m. Eastern. Cooper accused in the shooting death of her husband back in 2021. We'll have more this morning on her dramatic 911 call later this hour. In Florida, we've got former honor roll student, now murder defendant, Derek Rosa, scheduled for a status conference at 9 a.m. Rosa is accused of first-degree murder in connection to his mother's death back in 2023. And in Connecticut, we've got jury deliberations set to begin this morning in the Preppy party murder trial for defendant Raul Valle. The judge is scheduled to take the bench at 10 a.m. Eastern time. He will finish up the instructions for the jury, and then it's time for them to get the case, so that at that point we will all go on a verdict watch. The defendant is 20 years old now, He was 16 at the time that he stabbed 4 people, killing one of them at a party. This is back in 2022. The young man who died was 17 years old. His name was Jimmy McGrath. He was a star lacrosse player at the school. Now, there's no question a homicide was committed and that people were assaulted with a knife. The question is, was it done in self-defense or was it done illegally? Well, both sides took very different positions during the closing arguments. Take a look.
He's not, in the Amazon. This is a high school fight, fist fight. That wouldn't have happened, by the way, if he didn't go back. The only kids seriously injured here were Ryan, Faison, Tommy, and Jimmy. He didn't get seriously injured. You can't bring a weapon to a fist fight. You just can't do it.
The state gets a lot of things wrong about this case. But it got one thing absolutely right. This is a specific intent case. But it's not specific intent to murder. You know that. You sat here through all of this. Now again, he's no criminal mastermind, and he's certainly no trained knife fighter. What he was a 16-year-old boy, down on the ground, getting stomped and kicked.
So was this self-defense or was it murder? What do you think? Hit us up on social media. Let us know. I want to bring in our legal eagles now. So happy to have on the show this morning attorneys Tommy Pope and Mario Gallucci. Good morning to you both. All right. So I want to get your thoughts on who's got the more persuasive arguments. We saw the closings happen on Friday. Who persuaded you more and why? Tommy Pope, would you start us off, please?
I think, there's an art, obviously, to close an argument, and sometimes the one that has the good closing argument isn't necessarily got the facts behind them. What is it, the old thing, if you don't have the facts, argue the law. If you don't have the law, argue the facts, and not just argue like hell. So I think there's a certain aspect of that there. I think for me, and I've kind of been in and out of the case, the subtleties, the timings, when the knife was retrieved, when they brought it back. And any time in self-defense that you're going and coming back, I think that's going to be crucial, if the jury is dialed into that. And so I think, they were both effective in their own way. But at the end of the day, I think the timing and the facts and introducing the knife into all that chaos is what's going to carry the day.
Tommy, thank you. Mario Gallucci, to you next. Who persuaded you more and why, please?
So, we've been discussing this case for the last couple of weeks, and I actually said it last week, you don't bring a knife to a fist fight. And the prosecution really dealt with that. He actually said that. You don't bring a knife to a fist fight. And like Tommy just said, you have a duty to retreat if you can retreat. They not only retreated from the first fight, but they took it upon themselves to go to another place to continue. So, it's going to be a very difficult case. Although the defense did surprise me, he did a very good job of talking about where the stab wounds were to the other individuals who were stabbed, trying to make it out that this young man was on the floor, he was getting stomped on, he was getting beaten, and then he just started, slashing. Unfortunately, the individual that died, he was not involved in that fight. And on the video, it clearly shows him standing away from the fight, and he got stabbed in the chest. He didn't get stabbed in the legs, slashed in the legs like some of the other individuals did. This is going to be a tough one for the defense, I believe.
Sure. Mario, thank you for all of that. So let's look back at the defendant's testimony. He took the stand. For anybody who missed it, took the stand, was very emotional at some points of the testimony. Let's watch some of that now.
What did you see Tyler De Silva doing?
He was also on the ground getting beat on.
Why didn't you just get in that car and leave?
I saw my best friend, somebody that I loved. Nobody was helping him.
Okay, him taking the stand. We want to turn to whether this decision will help him in the end or maybe hurt him. Mario, I'll go to you first this time. Your thoughts on it, please.
So it's a self-defense case. I mean, in most of the self-defense cases I've tried over the years, the defendant has to take the stand. If he takes the stand, he's able to explain how he felt, why he needed to defend himself, and in this case, why he believed he needed to defend his friend who was getting stomped on. And you have to remember, at the time of this crime, I believe this young man was 16 years old. This is traumatic for a 16-year-old now who is at a party, going out to have a good time, is now sitting in a chair charged with murder, as well as a number of other counts of assault, where he could spend a significant portion of his life in jail. So, yes, he should have taken the stand. He needed to explain it, and the emotion, I believe, was genuine. It was a genuine emotion.
Mario, I had a feeling you may say that. Thank you for that perspective. Tommy Pope, to you next, please. Watching his testimony and coming into this case, looking at it with many years serving as a prosecutor, what did you think? Did you think the prosecution did enough with this defendant when they got the chance to cross him?
Yeah, I thought they did. It's always delicate. Again, you know, how many times I say reading a jury, seeing what they're thinking, how, you know, even though, you know, it's a murder case, the prosecution can on cross be too hard on him. And so I think the chaos, again, I talked about that before, him bringing the emotion to stand, I totally agree with Mario that taking the stand puts the jurors in his shoes, and you know, and then they judge his credibility. You know, is he crying because of the circumstances? Are they crocodile tears? He seemed authentic, I thought, and so I think it did nothing but help. It's a tough tightrope sometimes on cross if the jury is a little bit sympathetic, because I think at a minimum you've got kids fighting and you do something stupid, and they recognize that. A jury can recognize that, and not really nullification, but they can lighten up on a penalty or on a sentence based on sympathy for the defendant.
Mm-hmm. Great points you both made here. This is one of those cases I really wouldn't be surprised if it went either way. I have to say, I really wouldn't. I don't know what that jury is going to do. And we want your thoughts at home. Hit us up on social media. Let us know your predictions in the Preppy party murder trial, set to start back up 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll go there live when it does. In the meantime, we've got more fallout to tell you about from Diddy's verdict as a juror is an alternate juror, I should say, sounding off about the trial, saying that the freak-off videos were tame. What? Plus,
I'm working very hard on bringing justice for my daughter, and I feel this whole town that I live in wants justice just like me, and it is coming. It is gonna happen.
10 years since Kentucky mother of 5, Crystal Rogers, went missing. So could the latest trial bring her justice? We're on trial number 2 right now in Kentucky. We'll talk about what's tipping the scales.
The Court TV podcast will return.
So starting with blood, how would blood get on the linens at freak-offs?
I was expected to have freak-offs on my period.
Who expected you to do freak-offs on your period?
Sean.
Who decided how many entertainers you would be with in a single hotel night?
Sean.
How did you feel during the freak-offs when Sean beat you?
Worthless, just like dirt, like I didn't matter to him. But that I was nothing, like absolutely nothing.
How did you react to seeing news coverage and social media posts about Cassie's lawsuit?
Because there was 3 specific pages that was just a harrowing resemblance to what I was experiencing.
The shocking verdict of Diddy's federal case remains a trending topic, and as the dust is settling, one alternate juror is speaking out post-verdict. Now, that juror was an alternate, did not deliberate in the case, so I want to be clear. He was one of 18 in that group that heard the whole case, but remember, just 12 were on the deliberating panel. Now, he told CNN that he understood the jury's decision and downplayed the infamous freak-off videos. Remember, the jury saw them, the public didn't see them, the media didn't see them, only the members of the jury, and he called them tame.
No, I mean, they were showing some of the, well, I mean, there was both the the freak-offs and hotel nights, as they were called. It was actually like pretty tame.
Really?
Yeah.
Did she?
It was just a lot of rubbing oil and stuff on there. It wasn't anything too graphic.
Okay, so that was surprising to many people who were watching this trial, thinking that it would have been something incredibly graphic shown to the jury on those tapes. Let's talk about, were the freak-offs more tame than expected? Was this something that was just trumped up in the coverage of the trial? Let's bring in our guests. Still with me, attorneys Mario Gallucci and Tommy Pope, and want to welcome in law enforcement expert Sonny Slaughter. Sonny, I'll start with you. What did you think when you heard this juror's comment?
Good morning, Julie and Tommy and Mario. One of the things that I thought immediately was E3. Experience, exposure, and expectations. What was this juror and all of the jurors' experiences, their individual experience and their collective experience? This might be something that they are engaged in, this type of activity. Have they been exposed in other forms which would make it seem unusually tame for them? And their expectations based on what they heard prior to, and then they actually saw the video, like all of us. What were our expectations, and were they diminished now, the public, after hearing what this man said? I think it is unusual for me personally that he thought that when someone is saying that they had to have sex and they had to be revived and they had to have, nourishment, and that they went on for this many hours, that it was rather tame. But that is based on my experience and exposure, and his and the other jurors may have differences. So that's why it might be they might have said, based on him, that it was rather tame.
Sure. I really appreciate those points, Sonny. We all come in there with our own life experiences, right? We all have a different lens in which we see the world through. Thank you for that. Mario, let me go to you next, please. What did you think when you heard that juror say that he found it to be tame?
So I love Sonny's E3. That's very compelling. That's a nice comparison. But, the media did a very good job here prior to this trial of talking about these white parties that ended in orgies and had all this sex going on, and which celebrities are going to be involved in these orgies and freak-offs. And then when we get to the trial, that's nothing of what occurred. Plus, we don't see the whole video. Prosecution played what they wanted to play. Defense played what they wanted to play. And this is an alternate juror. It's a juror that never got to deliberate with the whole jury. So, his version of tame may not have been the version that the other jurors thought of if he was in the room deliberating, and one of the jurors pointed out what Sonny just said, he might have thought differently about it. So in his experience, from what he was shown, he thought it was tame.
Great points, Mario. Tommy Pope, last but certainly not least, what's your reaction to this, please?
I tell you, it's the old, you can't judge a book by its cover. From everything we are talking about the juror now, you just don't ever know, like Sonny said about life experiences. I will tell you that from everything I heard, I expected some version of Sodom and Gomorrah or Caligula from the Roman orgies. And apparently, if that wasn't the case, I think, the prosecution probably set expectations too high, or whatever surrounding facts of the case set expectations too high, and it may have just funneled directly to the verdict that we saw, that there were some things that were done wrong, but other than that, they couched it as consenting adults, no matter how stressful and ridiculous and as Sonny pointed out, exhausting that the activities were. They obviously didn't see them as criminal.
Right. Excellent points, Tommy. Right. I remember thinking back when we heard the government had these tapes, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, is this kind of the smoking gun, so to speak, if they've got this stuff on tape, what they're alleging? And then here to see a juror, an alternate juror, saying that Cassie didn't appear to be forced into anything on the tape, you wonder if they were somewhat vindicating to Sean Combs. I mean, it's kind of wild that, Perhaps the prosecution didn't do themselves any favors by introducing them. I don't know. Media has not seen them, so just want to say the media did not get to see them. The media tried. What they were trying to do at that courtroom was get a few members of the media to then report back to the pool, but no reports on that. All right, so Diddy, tomorrow is going to be a day where there's going to be a hearing to see whether his sentencing will be moved up from October 3rd. And of course, Court TV will be following that tomorrow. I suppose they're prepping hard today. Now, I want to turn our power panel to some other trending news. Have you heard about this? An Oklahoma pediatrician is accused of allegedly killing her 4-year-old daughter by staging her daughter's drowning. Investigators say that Dr. Neha Gupta and her daughter were visiting Miami, Florida last month when this alleged drowning occurred. Gupta told police that her daughter left their condominium during the night, ended up in the pool, and she told police she tried to save her when she found her but couldn't. Her attorney released this statement saying, quote, she has had the worst tragedy imaginable occur, and then she's locked up without bond and is missing her own daughter's funeral. Common decency would dictate that a little more than 1 day's worth of investigation transpire before making such a dramatic move. Now, there's more to this story. We have some of this that we pulled from the affidavit. So she reported it as a drowning, but that's not what the forensic pathologist thinks happened. After examining the child's body, there was no water found in the child's lungs or stomach, that her death seemed consistent with asphyxiation. Asphyxiation had bruising on the inside of her cheeks, the doctor reported. Gupta told officers that they were asleep at the time of the incident, and we do know that she was in the middle of a very bad custody battle with her ex-husband. So police think she killed her daughter and made it look like her daughter accidentally drowned. What do you think is the most damaging fact against this doctor, now defendant? Let's bring back in our power panel, see what they think. Tommy Pope, I'm going to start with you this time, please. What do you think is the most damaging thing you've heard so far in the facts reported about this one?
Julia, obviously the forensics and the autopsy, you know, the difficulty there is you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so, you know, findings of asphyxiation, drowning, you know, at least drowning, you have the water present, but sometimes they're negative findings. In other words, you're eliminating other things. And so it would really be positive to hear an independent, and I'm sure we'll see this, you know, but a pathologist give a confirming opinion of the same thing. Because to me, that's, you know, what really brings it together. Now, later on at the condo or the Airbnb, there may surface some video, you know, because I was thinking, so if you smothered the child, she's placed her in the pool somehow, if that was the issue, because supposedly she couldn't swim and that's why she couldn't rescue her. But the forensics are going to be key. But again, you just have to be careful basing your entire case on just the forensics, because you have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And so, you know, defense can bring an expert that balances that out, and the jury's left wondering. So, to me, that's the damning evidence, but it's also the most fragile.
Great points, Tommy. Sonny, to you next. Your thoughts, please.
You know, this is a horrific case. When we think about these custody, more than one parents have been in a custody battle, and the children have subsequently been murdered by them. Don't know all the details, but the concern, and I agree with Tommy, is around the mouth and the forensic and what the is saying right now. And did she do this, and why? Was it to keep the child from the father? And if so, then this is problematic that we keep seeing these type of cases. She is not yet, you know, confirmed. And I think it's really important that we, because she is not convicted, she is not guilty yet, and we have to see all of the evidence around this particular case. And this is happening in Florida, so I look them.
Yeah, we'll have the cameras in the trial, definitely, Sonny. Mario Gallucci, take us home, if you would, kindly, please, your thoughts.
So if she had the capacity to smother the child, which is unbelievable for a pediatrician, she could have had why wouldn't she have the capacity to then drown the child? And I know that people are going to say, I can't believe I just said that. But I mean, we're talking about a woman who's going to be charged with killing her child by smothering her. Well, it's the same. You're doing the same thing by drowning her. And she's a doctor and she knows it. So I would probably, if I was, like Tommy just said, I would get my own forensic pathologist. Perhaps we get Dr. Bodden in here and we work this case up.
Right. I love Dr. Bodden. Yes, yes. I love his wife, Linda, too. All right, Mario Gallucci, thank you for that. We'll leave it here for now. Tommy, Sonny, Mario are coming along with us as the morning continues. Still ahead here on Opening Statements. Oh my gosh, we're breaking down that critical 911 call made by Karina Cooper. A voice expert joins us to help make some sense of that frantic call. Plus, it's been 10 years since Kentucky mother Crystal Rogers vanished. Could the latest trial in connection to her death tip the scales in the way of justice for the Rogers family?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. This morning, we're shining our spotlight on the Widow's Words murder trial. I am a mother, Karina Cooper, accused of murdering her husband, Ryan Cooper. Seen here, the accusation is that she did it with the help of her lover. And what prosecutors are alleging was a scheme to collect $1 million, $500,000 rather, in life insurance money. Now, police say that Karina Cooper was sitting on top of her husband Ryan's blood-soaked body in a recliner. Perhaps the key to the case may be a 911 call.
What is going on?
The defense team is arguing that Ms. Cooper's lover, Huston Danker, this guy is the one that killed Ryan Cooper and did it alone. That's the defense position. Now, the two of them are being tried separately, and his trial is going to begin in August. Prosecutors went first with hers. So let's talk about her 911 call. What can we glean from it? We have with us this morning for the first time on the program, so pleased to welcome statement analysis expert Bob Schaefer. And he's going to be alongside attorney Tommy Pope for this one. Bob, great to have you on the program. So you've heard that call. We've heard it, the blood-curdling screams in it. You're able to read far deeper into that. Tell us what you're able to read into what she said on the call, please.
Well, it's not so much what she might have said as much as where does that hysterics come from? And so the way I look at it, I mean, she doesn't really offer much information, but there's a couple of things that I look at. First of all is why the hysterics? And normally, just to put it into a context, somebody that is hysterical to that degree is highly, highly unusual. And it's just been my experience that if somebody is that hysterical, first of all, she called for help. She called 911 for help, yet resists the help. She doesn't ask for help, doesn't ask for an ambulance, doesn't ask for police, doesn't ask, she just screams. And so she had the presence of mind to call 911. You'd think that she might have the presence of mind to actually offer some information that would get her that help. My perspective on things, what I look at with language is that person intending to deceive us, or is that person intending to accurately and completely tell us the truth? And that hysterics, it's just my impression that she does that so she doesn't have to answer any questions. She projects that there's some kind of an emergency, but doesn't offer any information. So it's kind of a matter of convenience. Now, most of the time when somebody's confronted in a really traumatic situation, it puts them into a certain psychological state of mind. And it tends to have kind of I want to say a calming effect, but the emotion, there's a physiological occurrence where the emotion blocks, the chemical reaction in the brain blocks that emotion and allows us to respond more logically. And I guess what it boils down to is that my impression, based on the way I know that the brain functions, that her reaction there and her hysterics is very highly suspicious. That's not the way a person would normally respond under traumatic or conflicted experiences. So it really raises my suspicion because it's not consistent with the way a person would normally respond under those circumstances.
This is really illuminating hearing you talk, Bob, about how if someone's not giving information, you know, what is their purpose in it? Is the purpose, like you said, to deceive? Is it for show? Is it in case they get caught? Tommy Pope, I'm sure you've had a situation where you've had a 911 call where somebody's feigning something and trying to make it seem like they're calling for help. You know, we don't know what her intention is, only she knows. But I'm sure you've had this arise in the past. Tommy, would you speak to what that's like?
Yeah, sure, Drew. Yeah, and I'll tell you, it was that was very interesting to me, too. I'm glad we have new guests, Julie. Maybe get rid of me.
No, never.
But I will tell you, I mean, I agree. It was like to document my hysteria without actually giving anything positive that could really save a life. Now, obviously, he was shot, and it may have been too late, but it was really to document my hysteria, which then kind of pseudo-alibi. I couldn't have had anything to do with it because didn't you see how hysterical I was? And now, with that being said, you know, every individual's different. Julie, I know you've seen in sexual assault cases, you know, some victims will giggle on the stand and it seems incongruent to what was actually going on with them. So she may be the hysterical type, but I agree that nothing was gained other than to document how hysterical she was.
And Tommy, I love what you said. When you said the word alibi, I thought bingo was his name-o. That's sometimes what people will do to make it seem as if what they're doing is all on the up and up and is what it purports to be. I want to play a little more, in this case with Ms. Katrina Cooper. Let's listen to a little more on that call. Bob Schaefer, I want to go back to you there. Your thoughts on that little portion?
Well, like I said, it was really hard to actually hear what she said, and I'm not so sure what she said was that important. Once she said, I did it, that would be pretty important, but she didn't. I think that what she's doing is projecting her impression of how a person under those circumstances should respond. She's thinking hypothetically. In other words, she's not thinking from memory. She's projecting out what she thinks we would expect. And so she's doing this for our benefit. I'm not getting the impression that it's realistic. The degree of hysteria is alarming and it's not normal. But I think she's doing it because she thinks that whoever's going to be listening to this is going to expect that type. In other words, she's projecting what she thinks a normal person would do under those circumstances, and it's not normal. And that in and of itself detracts from the credibility of what she did.
Fascinating, Bob, to hear you give this analysis. That howling, it almost sounded like an animal in distress or something. It was really bad howling. I would love to know what that 911 operator thought of that, if they thought it sounded genuine or forced or manufactured in some way. Who knows? But Karina Cooper's case is going to kick back off at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Our cameras are there. We'll see what today brings. Bob Schaefer, we hope you come back. A fascinating analysis. We really enjoyed our time with you. Thank you kindly. And Tommy Pope, we're certainly not getting rid of you. You're coming along with us for Court TV Live. Here's what's next on Opening Statements. We're talking about the Crystal Rogers case. Two men on trial right now. One of them her ex-boyfriend, another an associate of his. Take a look.
I was told this morning, once they secured the scene and everything, that they were doing a search on the farm today, that they had got some search warrants, and they're searching the farm today, the Houck farm.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. Let's talk about what's tipping the scales of justice in Kentucky. As closing arguments are set to begin this morning in one of the biggest cases in true crime, the case over the murder of Crystal Rogers. So we've got two men being tried right now. One of them is her ex-boyfriend, Brooks Houck. The other one is an associate of his. Now, there was a third man who was tried first, and that would be the associate's father. So he's already been convicted in connection with this alleged conspiracy. So on Thursday, a detective testified about finding out after the fact that Brooks Houck had recorded his own interview with police. That's right, he was interrogated because he's the boyfriend, so makes sense. Investigators are going to want to talk to him. But why would he record it? More now from Scripps News, Lexington.
When Houck first walked in the room, he was caught on camera actually pressing a recorder in his pocket. The detective on the stand said no one ever does that when they're being interviewed. He said he didn't know Houck was secretly recording the interrogation until later. Houck spent over an hour, writing a statement on his whereabouts of July 3rd and July 4th of 2015 when Rogers disappeared and was never seen again. They said he wrote down a bunch of details related to his job as a builder, but never once mentioned going to the farm with Crystal the night of July 3rd, the night she vanished. They brought in witness after witness that disputed some of the things Brooks claimed to have done that day. During this police interview, the jury watched Houck reading his written statements out loud while the detective was out of the room. Prosecutors believe he was recording his statements to share with his family so they could all keep their stories straight. Just days after Rogers disappeared, Houck was already talking as if she was gone for good. Have a listen.
I've got all the hope in the world, but now I'm a single parent, it appears to me, where she's been there 100% of the time for him to raise and rear him, where I know that he didn't have to go to a daycare or a babysitter, and I know that his mother is going to take care of him. And now, where am I at without that love and support from her? Now I've got a little boy who's 2, who's going to grow up his life if something's not done where she's not brought back safely.
Oh, boy. All right, so that was just some of his interrogation. So now he's on trial with defendant Joseph Lawson. And Joseph Lawson's father, Stephen Lawson, was convicted of tampering and conspiracy to commit murder. Now, let's talk about this. Are we going to get closer to justice for Crystal Rogers with this trial? Closing arguments are expected today. Mario Gallucci is joining us from New York City to give us some analysis. Okay, Mario, what do you think? Looking at this case objectively, having been on both sides of the courtroom, you've been a prosecutor, you're a defense attorney, you've tried high-profile cases. Do you think this family is going to get justice when this is all said and done?
I do. So it's always a difficult case for a prosecutor when you don't have a body. And I've tried cases like this. And to add to that, it's a circumstantial evidence case because everything here, there's no direct evidence that he actually murdered her. But they've done a very good job of showing all of the things that occurred before and after the crime, including him recording the statement. In addition to that, other people involved in this recorded their grand jury testimony. So when you take all of that into account, and the fact that one of the people involved, I believe was his brother-in-law, turned his phone off for 24 hours, left it at his home. And people are like, well, it's not pinging anywhere. Yeah, but the prosecution's able to show that over his lifespan, he's never had his phone off for 24 hours. So that's another piece of the puzzle in this type of circumstantial evidence case. So I think we will be getting justice for Crystal Rogers, and we already did. One of them's already convicted. And I'm surprised we haven't heard any evidence of that in this trial.
Mario, great analysis, as always. You mentioned Brooks Houck's brother. Brooke Houck's brother. Gosh, it's Monday. It's a very Monday. I'm inarticulate today. His brother, Nick Houck, a former Bardstown police officer, left the department and was really disgraced in him leaving the department, has not been charged, but there has been somewhat of a cloud of suspicion. Prosecutors made some comments at a court hearing about Nick Houck potentially selling a firearm to undercover officers, that the government was analyzing that firearm to see if it was the one used to kill Crystal's dad, Tommy Ballard. We never got answers to that. We don't know what the analysis in the end established, if anything was conclusive about it. But we know that Nick Houck was spoken to. Tell me, Tommy, if you're Nick Houck, would you have counsel now, right now, today?
I believe everybody should have counsel all the time.
That's such a Mario Gallucci answer, right? Call your lawyer.
Never, ever speak to law enforcement without a lawyer. So yes, he should have counsel immediately.
Yeah, I just keep thinking with information coming out in this trial that things might get really real for Mr. Nick Houck. You mentioned about the phone being turned off, and I don't know if he will ever be charged with anything. He hasn't been, so I want to be very clear. He's never faced any charges. Just there's been a lot of discussion, as you know, Mario, in the true crime community. People want to know if his brother Brooks did this and if he had help in it. And as you said, one person, Steve Lawson, already convicted. Mario Gallucci, you've got cases to win. We need to let you get off to battle this morning. Thank you so much for the great insight and expertise. We will see you next Monday morning. And my friends, that's all for this episode of Opening Statements. But if you liked it, watch it again, share it with your friends. Go to courttv.com. We pop the episodes up there every morning after the show's over. You can click on the shows tab if you want to watch it later. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants-on-fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on courttv.com.